I'm sorry. Alrighty, you guys, so this has been a video that has been in the back of my mind basically since I started making videos on YouTube, and with the passing of time, it's evolved through many different thoughts, opinions, and theses. And the reason that I finally decided to sit down and take on this video is because of a community post I made prior to the launch of TDS and TDX's last major content updates, the Halloween updates. I was citing my happiness that both games were going to update on different days, allowing me to stream both. And well, this post evidently aged like milk, with TDS delaying their update launch until 30 minutes after Tower Defense X's. And because of this, TDS and TDX fans got at each other's throats, and the war started once more. And for me, that was the tipping point. The TDS-TDX rivalry sucks, plain and simple. It is a toxic, illogical social construct in the tower defense community that creates tension between two extremely similar communities, and it is just based upon old drama. And having become an official content creator for both games, and having played both games since their respective launches, I feel uniquely qualified to say, your rivalry doesn't work. I have met tons of developers, both at TDX and TDS, and everyone I have met on both sides show such incredible passion, love, and creativity for these games. I want to preface this video with the notion that these are my opinions and are in no way motivated by my connections to either game's developers. This is all me, not them. I'm making this video for two reasons. To speak directly to you, the community member, fan of either or both games, but also to John and Below Natural, the owners of these fantastic games that I love so much. I want to put it plain and simply. This rivalry should be ended publicly and clearly, but more on that at the end of the video. With that being said, let's dive into the core of this rivalry: competition. It cannot be ignored that yes, TDX and TDS are both businesses that share market of the Roblox tower defense genre, and as such, they do compete. To an extent. It's no secret that TDS and TDX have to remain vigilant with their updates, lest they fall behind the other. And so I've split the concept of competition into two types: good and bad competition. Let's start with the good. No matter which game you play, good competition between TDS and TDX is going to be what benefits you, the viewer watching, the community as a whole, and me as a content creator. These two games, being similar and sharing market share of the TD genre, forces both games to innovate, have quality in their updates, and overall update somewhat frequently. It's not a secret that following the release of TDX, TDS adopted its modern update schedule, opting for more frequent updates, which saw a lot of success over at Tower Defense Simulator. Meaning, if you're someone who just plays TDS, you are still getting benefited by TDX's existence. TDX isn't stealing players, it's keeping TDS on its toes so that TDS improves. This isn't just exclusive to TDS fans though, as TDX is in a very similar spot, cooking up good updates to try and exceed TDS, which is currently seen as the baseline. This competition is extremely good for both games, as both games are making better and better content as time goes on to try and one-up the other. So even if you, the viewer, only watch my videos for one of these games, there's no reason to hate the other, as they create a symbiosis of good content with their coexistence on the genre. I'm not here today to tell you that you have to like both games. You are totally allowed to have your personal preferences, believe me, I understand. That being said, mindless, this game sucks, this one is so much better, is just a bad argument. TDS and TDX are fundamentally extremely similar games, both being heavily based on tower battles, which basically set up the format for Roblox tower defense games as a whole. You cannot tell me with a straight face that one game is an amazing god tier game while the other one is absolutely terrible. Both games have their pros and cons, believe me, no one talks about their pros and cons like I do. Now it's time to talk about bad competition. Things that these games employ that do not benefit the community and exist as what could only be described as aggressive maneuvers that can harm the community for the sake of gaining or retaining current players. Namely, there are two things I want to call out here: update scheduling and the grind. These are two things that I personally feel both games do for the sakes of player retention that do not benefit us as the community and can actually outright harm it. First up, updates. While this has never been explicitly stated, I personally find it hard to believe TDS just happens to update right as TDX does. I think it's just a little hard to believe due to the frequency that this happens. Once is a chance, twice is a coincidence, 3 times, it starts to look like a pattern. In fact, this is the very reason that I ended up making this video, as it pushed me over the tipping point on wanting to make this video. As TDS delaying their Halloween update for 30 minutes before TDX's, when they had 24 other hours in the day to pick from, is just so hard for me to believe, and it, to me, feels petty. Update scheduling like this may give a short-term boost in concurrent players, but it overall harms the community and once again kickstarts the TDX versus TDS arguing, which I am so unbelievably sick of hearing about. But I'm not just here to criticize Tower Defense Simulator. Tower Defense X has done some things that I don't agree with either, namely the grind. If you guys know me, I do not like it when TDX makes the grind on an active event harder while the event is currently ongoing. And recently, that is exactly what they've been doing. You guys know that from this video here. John nerfed a bunch of grind strats, and I was not a fan. Grinds exist to keep people playing the game, and a little grind in a game is by no means bad. I understand that that is in the modern gaming landscape how you retain players. But the level that they have kept the grind in TDX right now has gotten the community up in flames. And so that is the difference between good and bad competition. One benefits both games and their communities, and one hurts the communities by retaining players for the sake of competing. I completely understand that both TDX and TDS are games and by proxy businesses that need to make money, and that is why they compete so hard. That being said, these instances of bad competition likely do not make back up in short-term profit what they create in community discourse. But hear me out. What if there was a way to create something beloved by the community, creating a strong bond between both games, that would also create a crap ton of money for the developers? Well, it's time to talk about another big motivator for me to speak today. The collab.
Why isn't it possible? It's just not. Why not?
The concept of a TDS-TDX collab has been floating in the air basically since TDX came out, with community members citing similar gameplay, John and Below's connection, and ways that the narratives could be tied in, all as reasons as to why the games should collab on a limited time event, much like TDX X Tower Battles or TDS X Please Donate. Collab events have historically done very well in tower defense games, most noticeably the TDX X Tower Battles Part 1 event, an event which is so iconic it is now core to the TDX experience and lore. And while not every collab needs to be this involved with the story and lore, it does go to show that collabs can be more than an IP share for the sake of money. And in my opinion, this is the route TDX and TDS should take. With both games having such expansive worlds, there are so many routes they can take thematically with the story. I already went over what I think a hypothetical collab could look like narratively in this video on screen now, so if you want to see what that looked like, feel free to go check it out after you finished this video. But Salts, what is the benefit the developers get out of this? Surely it wouldn't pay off for the developers even if it was well received by the communities. That is where I disagree, my dear viewer. In my opinion, this event would print money for both TDS and TDX. A limited battle pass, skin crate, or event towers all have ways of creating cash flow to each game's respective developers, as even without these monetization features being super aggressive or pushed too much, people would buy them at a higher rate than regular in-game cosmetics. I mean, look at a game like Fortnite, which basically abandoned making original skins because collab skins sold so much better. I'm not saying TDX and TDS need to turn this collab into an over-monetized slop fest to make good money. Purely by these collab items existing, it would more than likely net a higher profit than your average skins would. The hypothetical TDS and TDX collab would be so good for the community, for the developers, and for the most important fact, the love of the tower defense genre. But alas, John confirmed they are not doing a collaboration.
Oh, we were right there, man!
A decision I sincerely hope they revert, as I believe the reasons I list out here completely outweigh any cons of such a collaboration. But why did they cancel the collab in the first place? There were a lot of rumors that circulated through the community, including one that I'm going to kind of touch on here, which is the rumor that this was due to the relationship between John and Below. To give context to newer members of the TDS and TDX communities, John Roblox, current owner of TDX, made YouTube videos promoting TDS in its earlier days. So many, in fact, that a custom tower was created for John, the aptly named John Tower. This tower is a cult classic amongst TDS fans, being a useful support and DPS tower in the game's early days. However, at the release of the overhaul update in 2020, the John Tower was basically removed, being reworked into the Militant Tower. To my knowledge, an explicit reason was never really given for its removal, and it is largely speculated that this removal of John hinted at a degradation of relations between John and Below. Later on down the line, John would return to TDS as a skin for the Militant Tower, although it was an extremely limited skin that you can no longer obtain. Now, I want to preface this part of this video with the following. I am not John or Below. I do not know them on a personal level, and everything said here is speculation and my own personal opinion. I never, ever want to speak on behalf of these people or developers in general. So, without further ado, please note. So with that having been said, John and Below, if you so happen to be watching, I humbly do ask that you listen to what I have to say, as brutal as it is going to be. In the nicest, most constructive way possible, I do not believe John and Below's relationship, whatever it may be, should be the reason that these games do not collaborate. They are adults, they are game owners, and I believe even if they do not like each other, coming together for the sake of creating something that would be so beloved by their communities and so overall appreciated for the sake of creating art is absolutely paramount, and it would overall benefit both of their games long term. Especially considering John and Below have insisted that there is no beef, citing this picture here, although some people may disagree with this given recent actions by TDS and TDX, for example the instances of bad competition I mentioned earlier in this video. In the event that there is drama between John and Below, I do not believe that grade school level drama should stop what would be such a beneficial event for both parties. The level of passion both development teams show in their games is insane, and a combined force would be legendary. Through my interviews that I've done on this channel, I have had the opportunity to speak with almost every single person who has worked on the music soundtracks for each games, and the level of musical respect that these two groups have for each other is insane. Focus, Enthrallist, GJ, Aaron Prevails are all so complimentary of one another's work, and it is just so unbelievably wholesome to see. And stuff like that is why I push so hard for this, because I believe this would be so awesome based on my experiences with these people. This all, of course, goes on the assumption that within John and Below's relationship, nothing illegal, immoral, or unethical occurred between them that occurred them to stop talking as much. Again, I do not know them personally, this is all speculation in my opinion, but if something like that did happen, I do think that would be a lot more valid grounds for not doing this collab than doing it. I do not think small, personal level drama should be a reason that a collab that would shape the genre should not occur. And I think a lot of the community agrees with me. Well, most of the community. So, this is the unfortunate part of the video where I address the community, more specifically, bad actors in the community of both games that act like the other game is straight up the worst thing known to man. Listen, I mentioned this earlier, I'm not here to tell you what you have to play, I'm not saying you have to love both games. Having a preference in what game you play is totally cool. I can completely understand you as a player enjoying one experience over the other. That is completely and totally reasonable. Now, what isn't reasonable is people saying that one game is the peak of tower defense content and the other is a piece of crap. Because plain and simple, they are way too similar on a fundamental level for that argument to make any sense. I mentioned this earlier. Another point to make is the TDS and TDX communities are just too similar. Sure, TDS has their Titus and Green Scout jokes, and TDX has their Xenon memes, but overall, as someone who has been in both communities since their respective inceptions, I can say that from a fundamental operating status, they are relatively similar. First off, TDX's original community was effectively built off of a splinter group of TDS's fanbase, meaning the very seeds that created TDX's community originated from TDS. Both communities react very similarly to certain events, such as getting very upset over delays and feeling like the other community is out to get them at times. There is very little that changes between the TDS and TDX community outside of the context in which they each operate. The differences with them aren't in how they act, but in what they are centered around. Contrary to some people's belief, we are not as different as people would want us to believe, and I am so unbelievably tired of pretending that we are not. People act like it is a huge war of us versus them, when in reality, it should just be us. Us united as tower defense players and lovers of good games. But salts, they copy each other all the time. Yes, a debate as old as time itself. TDS and TDX knocked each other off and are stealing ideas from one another. This is one of the defenses used by people who insist one game is vastly superior than the other, stating that one trailblazes new ideas and the other just grasps onto the other one's coattails. And this is just false. First off, thematically, TDX and TDS are polar opposite games. TDS tells a cartoony, vibrant story full of exaggerated characters, funny quips, and a vast roster of concepts throughout its villains. TDX, on the other hand, approaches with a gritty, down-to-earth, realistic military theme. Characters are deep and emotional, telling an overall darker story. TDX's villains are more inline and organized, with a clear visual theme when compared to TDS's sporadic and more unique villains. Both of these themes work fundamentally amazing, with characters like Dr. Xenon and Narrator being fan favorites and loved by their communities for completely different reasons. These games look different, but do they feel different? Tons of people insist that these games knock each other off through stealing tower concepts. And this is also just such a misconception. Sure, towers like Soldier and Ranger, Minigunner and Juggernaut, and Armored Factory and Military Base are indeed extremely similar, but this is not blatant copying. Let me explain. These are incredibly common tower types, such as an early game burst tower, a mid-game DPS tower, and a mid-game spawner tower. These towers are not knockoffs of each other, because frankly, they're really different from one another. For example, TDX's Armored Factory can spawn multiple vehicles at the same time, while TDS's Military Base gets a unique airstrike ability. So even though sure, they're both military vehicle spawning towers, they still play pretty similarly, despite filling similar roles. Even then, both of these games feature tons of towers that don't have an equivalent in the other game, like Commando from TDS or War Machine from TDX. Just because two games use a similar archetype to round out their tower roster does not mean it is blatant copying, especially given the fact that these similar archetypes all have their unique differences. For the heck of it, in simplest terms, the reason why this rivalry is so dumb is because at the end of the day, if you play both games, you get double the content. You like it when the Christmas event drops in TDS? Play TDX, you'll get 2 Christmas events. You know what's better than 1 Halloween event? 2. You know what's better than 1 story arc progressing? You guessed it, 2. Again, I'm not saying you have to love both games, but I am saying you get more content if you do. As members of the tower defense community, we should always welcome genuine debate and discussion between games about intelligent, nuanced topics, not petty grade school level arguing. The truth of the matter is TDS and TDX can learn from each other, but we will get nothing done with petty bickering. Anywho's, this has been a long time coming. I've wanted to make this video basically since not even I started YouTube, but since TDX itself came out. And so finally being able to put all my thoughts on the table has been really awesome and relieving for me. I want to say this video comes from a desire to fix bridges that have been burning for a while now that, between you and me, shouldn't have been burning in the first place. And I really hope you guys agree with me. I really hope you guys see where I'm coming from here. And I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. With that being said, if you take anything away from this video, I want y'all to go out there, mend those bridges. You know, even if you don't really like the other game, you know, engage with the other community. Talk to them. You know, be respectful to one another. If you guys can do anything for me, that would be greatly appreciated. Anyways, let me know what y'all think about the video in the comments. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe for more salts. And make sure to...
The salts, you're up! They're waiting for you, man!
Alright, you guys. You heard him. I gotta go, but... genuinely. Thanks. Fellow members of the tower defense community, No matter who you are, Tower Defense Simulator fan, TDX fan, TDS developer, or TDX developer, I come to you today to put down our arms and hostilities, to reject such blatant toxicity, and come together as members of one unified community, celebrating what we have in these games, instead of being overcome by hatred due to small, meager, insignificant differences. Our genre is one of fantastic world building, storytelling, and gameplay. One of new ideas and innovations. In a Roblox landscape that is so polluted with brain rot cash grabs, TDS and TDX stand as proof that Roblox games can be cohesive worlds full of depth and unique flavor. Dividing ourselves in petty disputes will not create new ideas. It will not build better games. It will not make our community stronger. It does not benefit us to stand against one another. I invite you, dear viewer, no matter which side you're on, no matter which game you prefer, to stand against those that would tear us down. For together, we are stronger. Because there is an opponent to stand against.